Welcome back to RS Insider. My name's Tanner. Typically I'm on the other side of the camera, but today I wanted to be in front of the camera to talk about the Audi S3. We were going to film a rear-wheel drive sports car, but as you can see, Utah decided to snow a couple feet, so let's get into it. Today I wanted to talk about the Audi S3 because the 2022 redesign is coming out. I think this car is a great value proposition whether you are looking at a used or a leftover new. I was looking on CarGurus and AutoTrader and it looks to me like there's about 30 or 40 left as of time of filming. So yeah, we just want to get into it, discuss the car as a whole, go over the generation and see, is this a good car to buy right now? Quick overview on the Audi S3. This is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that has 288 horsepower. This car is paired with a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. Something unique about the S3 is the fact that it does not have a quattro system. It actually has a Haldex all-wheel drive system, so it's more front-wheel drive bias. 0 to 60 time on something like this is about 4.6 seconds. If you're considering a used S3, I think that is a great way to go. In comparison, a lot of people that will be shopping this car are looking at a Volkswagen Golf R as well. I think the Golf R is absolutely an amazing car. However, they do hold their value a little bit better than something like this S3. So I think from a used car proposition, I think the S3 might make a little bit more sense simply because you can find a price range anywhere from the teens with a 2015 to maybe mid 30s if you're finding one that has 10 or 15,000 miles on it that's a 2018 or 19. Personally, if you are going to go used, I would look for a 2017 or newer. That is when they did kind of a facelift on the S3 that gave you virtual cockpit as an option, as well as adding Apple CarPlay as a standard feature. All right, everybody, we hopped into the car. It's about 15 degrees outside. We wanted to go over the driving impressions of the car and just kind of talk about what this is like on the road. I have with me, of course, Enrique. I wanted someone's second opinion kind of as the passenger. And to be honest with you, Enrique isn't the biggest S3 fan, but I think that that's good simply because we have different opinions on cars and it always adds for good contrast and better content. But let's get on the road and see how this drives. Now, something to note, sorry.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, one of the things that I think is impressive about the S3, and I was actually just talking to Tanner about this, but I think it's super impressive that we're in a 4-cylinder car that's getting, it's still in the 20s in the city, it's 22 in the city, but in the freeway, you're gonna be in the high 20s, low 30s, and you're still going 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. I mean, that's sports car speed right there, but it's still good fuel economy. So this is definitely still a daily drivable sports car, but it definitely has that performance when you need it, you know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this car on the road is really, really nimble. I really am a big fan of small cars. Obviously, I would love to be driving an RS3 right now. However, I think S3 is good to go over simply because a lot of people really enjoy the S3 as a kind of aftermarket tuner car. There's a ton of options for this since this platform is shared with that Golf R. There's just a lot to do on this vehicle, and I think you really could make something special out of this. A lot of people that are doing stage 1, stage 2, maybe even a stage 3 tune are getting more performance than an RS3 for a lot less money.
Definitely, and I think one of the things is, at the end of the day, an RS3, that's a car that people could take to the track. You know, I mean, the RS3 is still has RS blood on it, whereas the S3, this is just a good platform car. If you want to do a stage 1 tune on it, you can. If not, I think stock the car is still great. On a good summer's day, take it to the canyon. You know, it's like Tanner mentioned, it's a nimble sports car. And it sounds good too. Weren't you mentioning, Tanner, that this has sound it's one of the Audis that does have sound?
It definitely has some fake sound coming in through the speakers, but overall it sounds pretty good. Like if you get into a Golf R or a Volkswagen GLI or a GTI, it definitely has that same effect. But from a 4-cylinder on the inside, it does sound pretty good. Something to talk about is the downsides of this car. I think this car does have a lot going for it, but a part of being a small sedan is the fact that it doesn't have a ton of rear leg room. It doesn't have a good trunk. Like there's not a ton of space. For me and Enrique, we're not the tallest people, but we do fit comfortably while driving the car. We're almost shoulder to shoulder, but we do have some good space. But I definitely think that this car would feel a little claustrophobic if you were to have 3 or 4 people in the car.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, like Tanner mentioned, we're not the tallest people, and right now there's not too much legroom in the back. And so if you're going to be in the 6 foot range, you can basically just forget about rear leg space, and especially with the sports seats. But if you're on the shorter end and you need to on a night out with friends, it's definitely doable. But it is a little cramped back there. I mean, I'd almost say that the back seat is probably comparable, even surprisingly, to the A5 coupe. Like, you'd be surprised how much legroom there is in the A5 coupe back seats, but that's a coupe, and this is a sedan, and so I think that your legroom is going to be pretty compromised.
Our particular car that we're driving, it is a very expensive S3. I mean, this does come at an MSRP of about $55,000. That is a ton for a car like this. Considering the base price in this car is $43,000, that's a lot of options. To think that there's $12,000 in options on such a small car, it's kind of a lot to ask for. However, I think the key things, like I talked about when I was outside the car, is I definitely would try to find one with the virtual cockpit. I would look for a 2017 or newer that has Apple CarPlay. Apple CarPlay is here to stay. It's going to be a feature we're going to be using in cars years to come, and I think that it's a must-have feature if you're looking to get a car nowadays. I think the S3 is for someone that wants something like an Audi TT or a smaller coupe, but needs to be a little bit more practical because their wife wants them to, or they're having kids, or they need to do more day-to-day things and they just really can't pull driving a 2-door coupe with barely functional rear seats. This car is a smaller car, and so it does handle more similar to a TT than I would say an A4, but in that you do get some awesome practicality. There is still rear seats, even though they are small. You get decent cup holders. They're not the best. They're in kind of a strange location, but overall it's a good package for the car, and I think that this car will be a good used car bargain. Especially, like I mentioned outside, I have been seeing a couple years old with some miles, 15 to 20,000 miles, being in the mid 30s. When you think about that as a comparison, that's less than a new A3 for almost a certified pre-owned or a lightly used S3. I want to do one acceleration here in the S3 and just feel how it handles just from a 0 to 60 time. The car definitely has some power. It feels responsive, it feels fun to drive. It's just a nice place to accelerate in. It's definitely something that you'd have fun driving up a canyon in the turns, but it's also something that wouldn't be terrible to commute in. This car that we're driving does have the driver assist package, so that will give you adaptive cruise control and lane assist. Definitely not something that would be a requirement for a little car like this, but is nice if you do find one that has it.
Yeah, and especially for daily driving, if that's something that you're gonna want adaptive cruise control with traffic jam assist. But that 0 to 60 was awesome. There's a slight turbo lag. Obviously, this is a turboed car, and so you'd expect that. But once that turbo is done spooling up, it's a fun car.
Something to note with this particular car is, since the redesign is coming out, there is going to be a couple years where we're not going to see new S3s coming out. So I think that these could start to hold their value a little bit better because they will be pretty desired. I think that for what Audi's offering, Audi will be missing in their US lineup a car that is this performance, this size, until we get the next car, and I think that is going to be a second. From what I've heard, Audi has been experiencing a ton of delays with getting some of the newer cars out. If you look at something like an RS6, the car was announced some time ago, and dealers are just starting to get their first inventory in of that model. So I think it is going to be a while until we see a 2022 Audi S3. And in the meantime, if you're looking for a great car, I say why wait when you could get something like this now. Thank you for watching the channel. We appreciate your viewership. We're going to be making a ton more content. We're trying to get a video out per week, but maybe 2 in the future. We're excited for what's to come. We're ready for spring. We're ready to start driving those rear-wheel drive sports cars. But please check out the channel. Check out our other videos. They should be listed below. Make sure to subscribe, like the channel, and we'll see you next time.